Will depowering your steering rack improve the driving experience? Today, we're going to find out with my 1995 Mazda Miata. Will it go smoothly or descend into chaos? Place your bets in the comments. So, what does depowering your steering rack mean? It means removing the power assist and converting your power steering into good old manual. For the Miata, this means removing the hydraulic pump and valve assembly. Why would anyone do this? Sharper, more direct steering, better road feedback, and because race car. Fun fact, the Miata's power steering rack has a quicker ratio than the optional manual steering rack, so it's a win-win if you do it right. How's it done? Most people just remove the pump and loop the lines. That's what I did at first. Others remove the internal flange, less friction, easier steering. And then there are the hardcore ones, who weld the two-piece pinion shaft. That's supposed to remove the dead spot at center and give you razor-sharp control. Today, I'm diving into both mods, removing the flange and welding the pinion. Disclaimer, don't try this at home unless you really know what you're doing, or if you're feeling reckless. At the end of the video, I'll give you my honest opinion on the results.
As you can probably see, this thing's pretty crusty, really dirty. So the very first thing I'm going to do is get it clean. I'm going to use a pressure washer, but you can use soap and a bucket of water and a brush. That'll work just fine. Now that we've got it all nice and clean, the next thing to do is start taking it apart. All right, so the first thing we've got to do is remove the tension assembly here on the rack. You do that by first removing the lock collar and then the cap. And the cap it's a 14 mil. I'm going to remove this lock collar with a large crescent wrench. There we go. That took some persuasion. Now inside that little cavity, or whatever you want to call it, there's the tensioner assembly. We're going to want to get that out. Make sure you don't lose any of the pieces. And here you can see all of the different pieces of the assembly. We've got a spring, a little washer, we've got the cap, the lock washer. There's a little kind of plastic piece here that sits directly on the shaft of the rack. And here we have the main assembly. Make sure you don't lose any of those. Now the next thing we've got to do is remove the dust cap that's on the bottom of the pinion. It's a 21 millimeter socket, pretty big boy here, but it's not too bad to get loosened up usually. There we go. That one was a little tight. Now this is just a dust cover. It doesn't actually hold the pinion on there. There is a smaller nut on the inside, as you can see there. So I changed camera angles a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing better. The next thing we've got to do is remove this nut that's holding the pinion on. It is a 17 millimeter, and you want to make sure that you have the rack turned all the way the opposite direction. And you may also want to put a towel underneath the rack because you're likely to pump out quite a bit of hydraulic power steering fluid, and you don't want to get that all over your nice shop floor, right? There. Just off there. Tap there. There we go. All right, so now the only thing left to do to get this pinion out of here is to remove this dust shield on the top. And we've got a snap ring in there that's kind of holding it in place. So I'm gonna remove that real quick. There we go. There we go. There she is. All right, I just wanted to take a minute to say that there are 2 bearings inside of here. Sometimes this upper bearing will want to come with the pinion. Other times it doesn't. For now, I'm going to leave it in there because there's really not much that I'm going to be doing inside of this part of the rack. All right, so the last thing we've got to do is remove the shaft from the rack body. And you do that by removing a little snap ring that's inside of here. And what you want to do is get something you can put through this little hole on the top and get it oriented so that one of the ends is right about where that hole is. And you can just pop a screwdriver or something in there and pop it out. And once you've done that, the shaft will just come right out. All right, lucky me, the end's already lined up in there pretty good. Let's see here. There we go. That was a lot easier than expected. There we go. Very messy. Now that we have everything disassembled, we're going to remove this flange right here. This guy is no longer needed on a Depowered rack, so we're going to remove it because it provides a little bit of resistance as the rack travels left to right inside the body. I'm going to do that with a cutoff wheel on an angle grinder, and then I'm going to cut on both sides. Then I'm going to use a chisel and a hammer to whack it the rest of the way off. We want to be careful not to cut into the shaft itself. If you nick it a little bit, not a huge deal. We just don't want to damage it. That might be close enough. That's just about it, I think. One more back to the side. There we go. Let's see if I can get the rest of it off. Tap this in. So you may have seen that I was having a little trouble there, and the reason for that was I didn't do a very good job of cutting this flange 180 degrees apart, and as a result this was still closed around the shaft a little bit, so I had to come back and make a little relief cut on the backside, and then it had enough give to where it just popped off with a relatively light hammer blow. The next thing we need to do is get this pinion fully disassembled and ready for welding. There is a large bearing on top of the shaft, and then below that we have the valve body. We'll no longer need that valve body, so we'll go ahead and remove it. We need to get rid of it anyways so that we can get to the section of the pinion that we need to weld. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but there is a C-clip that holds this valve body on, so you'll want to remove that before you're able to remove the valve body. All right, I was able to get that C-clip removed pretty easily, and this valve body should slide right off. And if you take a look at this area right here is the area we will be welding. Right in there. There is a little plastic, I don't know what it is, like a friction fitting or something like that, that we'll also need to remove because it'll be getting pretty hot in there and we don't want that melting and contaminating our weld. I got the pinion all nice and clean with some acetone here and prepped for welding. I'm going to start by throwing this guy in the oven at 350 degrees for about half an hour to preheat it. Then I'm going to weld a few beads on one side, flip it 180 degrees, weld a few more beads on the other side, and continue that process until I have the entire thing welded up. And then I'll throw it back in the oven and let it cool nice and slow in hopes that this thing won't warp on me.
might not be my best work, but it came out just fine. The good news is that the pinion did not warp.
There's one last thing that I want to do before I start reassembling the rack, and that's cut off these hydraulic fittings here, just to give it a cleaner look and give you a little more room in the engine bay. I'm going to cut these off with a cut-off wheel, and then I'm going to grind the paint off, plug the holes with my welder, and then I'm going to repaint it with some BTX chassis paint.
Everything's ready to be reassembled. I'm going to do that in the reverse order that I disassembled everything. I'm going to make sure I get the pinion and the shaft here, especially the teeth, nice and greased up before I do it. There's just one last thing we've got to do before we stick this back in the car, and that's tighten down the tensioner and get it set. We're going to tighten this guy down to 43 inch-pounds. It's not a lot. Then we're going to back it off 1/16 of a turn before we install the lock nut. When we do the lock nut, it's really important that we do not spin the tensioner and increase or decrease tension as we tighten this guy down. All it takes. Get this guy started here. Hand tight. Take my big crescent wrench here by try to lock that guy down. That should be good. All right, now let's test the tension here if we can. All right, seems to be spinning freely. No binding. Get this thing greased up. I think we are good. Feels great. Everything spins nice and smoothly, no binding, no excessive tension. We're all good. The rack you saw me working on was my spare. I've already installed my primary rack in the car, so unfortunately I don't have any footage of me installing it. However, I have been driving around on it for a few months now, so I can provide my honest feedback. Let's go for a drive. As previously mentioned, I started by looping the lines and removing the pump. I've been driving the car around this way for about a year now. Honestly, I've really enjoyed the car this way. Sure, it's a little more difficult to manage at low speeds, but I don't daily the car, so the feedback was well worth the trade-off. I wasn't expecting a huge difference by removing the flange and welding the pinion, but I was pleasantly surprised. There's a noticeable reduction in steering effort at low speeds, and the response is greatly improved off-center. It's kind of like the difference between a naturally aspirated engine and a turbocharged one. When you turn the steering wheel, it responds instantly. Would I recommend this? Absolutely. Disclaimer: I take no responsibility for any damage you do to your vehicle. If you're not an experienced welder, please find someone that is. All the welding that was done in this video was done on my Fireball Tool DIY fixture table. They're not yet a sponsor of this video, but you can find my initial review here, or maybe it's here. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do me a solid, hit that like button and subscribe. There's a lot more on the way.